Welcome. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And you're listening to the Ask Brien radio show, spelled AskBrien. And Mr. Engineer, why would you spell Brien with an E? I was told in school all my friends were named Brian or Bryan. Why is Brien spelled with an E?
Well, the E also stands for a couple of words that define what Ask Brien is about. There is excellence, there's empathy, there's, of course, effort, experts, because you have to be an expert on the show, and then you may count this one, you may not count this one, but I like to count it. It's engineer, because you need an engineer for your show. So, hey, there you go.
I don't know. I heard a lot about podcasts. I can do it without an engineer. I don't want to see you later.
Oh, there he goes again, folks.
On that project now. So, for those listeners who have never listened to the Ask Brien radio show, it's spelled AskBrien, we are a broadcasting network live on AM/FM radio, where we each week try to help business owners solve business problems and teach business problems. We're actually in the gist of changing our program slightly, where we are discussing and going to be emphasizing the side hustle. So essentially, if you have a business, we're certainly going to help you out. But if you don't have a business and you're looking to try to figure out a way that, hey, listen, I can't survive on X dollars a week, and if I had a couple extra bucks here and there, that would be the difference between, saving money and having to take money out of my bank account each week. Well, that's our goal, to try to help people out and then transition into having your own business. Now, as we said, the Ask Brien Network is part of the Ask Brien website, which is AskBrien.com. Now, Ask Brien website has two main components to the platform. One component is industry usage. So basically, a dry cleaner in Alaska and a dry cleaner in Georgia can ask questions, hey, how do I get that stain out? Well, that's an industry question. It doesn't have to do with what your background is, other than being a cleaner. Whereas the other component for the Ask Brien Network is the experts. Now, the experts are basically people that have been vetted. They require a minimum of 10,000 hours, although there are a few exceptions here and there. And for those exceptions, that's on a case-by-case basis. But essentially, we use 10,000 hours as 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year is 2,000 hours in 5 years. After 5 years, you probably have a good background. That's not the only criteria, but it is a major criteria to determine whether or not you can qualify to be, based on your profession, a marketer, an accountant, a salesperson. There are a few exceptions, so it's not a guarantee. Some people won't make it that have the 10,000 hours. Some people with less than 10,000 hours will make it. But as a criteria, that is a very, very big factor in determining it. And each expert has a couple of things. They have their own profile where they can post their own videos, their own ebooks, their own blog posts, and their own webinars. And they can put their webinar on the Ask Brien International Network and allow people to go ahead and say, hey, listen, I'd like to take a webinar on developing my own podcast or creating a marketing plan for my newly launched website. Any one of those things can be done. That's what the Ask Brien Network is all about. We've been around for over 4 years. We've done probably over 135, 140 episodes each week, Thursday, 1 to 2 p.m. on AM/FM radio in Los Angeles, 1220 AM and 98.1 FM. Now, without any further ado, we have my co-host, and his name is Alex. Grossman. Alex, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Brien Johnson. I'm extremely excited about the new format, and side hustle is one of the things that we all need, especially in these crazy times. And since we're all working at home, I'm in my home studio today. I'm really excited about hearing more and learning more. I understand we're going to learn a lot today.
Well, we learn a lot every day, and I don't know why your name is so long. Though usually just Grossman is simple, but you've got that long O and S in there. It must be going for miles and miles and days and days. But Alex has a lot of background and a lot of experience, and we have our guest, who's also technically a co-host, but mainly a guest in today's role. And her name, she's calling from a couple miles away. What's that continent? Oh yeah, Australia. And her name is Tamara Loehr. Tamara, are you there?
I certainly am. Hello and good morning for me and good afternoon for you.
Well, you should have your cup of coffee ready, do you?
Absolutely. And watching the sunrise, it's a beautiful thing at the beach.
Well, it's always good to be at the beach. Only I remember Bondi Beach, but that was in Sydney, a little couple miles from you.
Yeah, it's a busy one.
So, and for people that don't know you, just give a quick little synopsis of your background so people know who you are.
Yeah, certainly. I'm a serial entrepreneur, 25 years now, specialising in the beauty and wellness sector around clean beauty and wellness. And I focus on online, so selling products online direct to consumers who are health conscious. And I sell products throughout America, in Australia, and actually throughout the whole world. So I think that's really the way the whole world's going with business. So let's discuss what's possible today, and maybe I could share a little bit about how I've been able to achieve that over the years. So,
when you began, did you start it as a side hustle, or did you say, hey, whatever have been doing, I have nothing to start with, and I'm going to start from scratch, and I'm not working for anybody? So was this an actual side hustle, or was it something, this was your business model?
Look, it was a side hustle because, a lot of people can't afford the luxury of quitting their jobs. Whilst the current environment has presented some time for people to consider what else they could do and perhaps spend some time on upskilling themselves. For me, I was in a full-time role. I didn't last long, about a year, and was working on finding clients on the side. But it was, obviously a lot of hard work because it was fee for service. So you're putting in that time. So what I love about online is you don't have to work an hour to make an hour's worth of work, money. So what's great about online is you can wake up every morning and it becomes a bit addictive to the point where I have to put my phone in another room. Otherwise, I get up in the middle of the night and check it. But you get up in the morning and you get to see how much money you've made overnight, which is pretty cool.
Well, absolutely. Also, you are in Australia, and so do you think most of your sales are from Australia, from the United States, from Europe, without putting you on the spot, which I just did?
Actually, most are in America. So what I tend to do is I'll test a new product here. We're very health conscious, and I'll iron out all, the logistics, refining the marketing. I do all of that here, and then I launch it in America through the same channel. So, pretty much American focused, and they're loving the products. I have two products that are made, or two brands that are made in America, and then two that are made here in Australia. So I have a head office in Anaheim, in LA. My team are all there, but I get to live here with my family, and I used to commute, but no planes are going at the moment.
So, question we have for you is, this one is definitely putting you on the spot. Have you tested any products in Australia that were successful that didn't work in the U.S.?
Yes, actually. There was some vegan chocolate that we created because part of my mandate is vegan, cruelty-free, organic. So we created some chocolate that was a dark chocolate, 90% cacao, only 5 ingredients, so very clean, huge success in Australia. Actually, it's up for an award at the moment, but it just didn't suit the American palate. Perhaps you're eating too many Hershey's there, but it was the dark chocolate palate really didn't suit the American palate. There was, you're obviously, your hardcore dark chocolate lovers in America, and your vegans and whatnot that loved it, but it wasn't enough to create a market. So, look, like anything in business, some things work and some things don't.
Well, absolutely. Now, are you still selling that in Australia?
Yes, we're still selling it in both places. It's sold through CVS in America, and it's in all the health food stores here in Australia. But, you've got to fail quickly in business. So for me, I look at, the size of the manufacturing run versus the amount of sales, and that one's just not a viable long-term solution. Unless something changes dramatically with Americans and their diets anytime soon. But I think that's really important. You've got to look at the trends. You've got to make sure you do the tests before you release something. And even someone like myself, 25 years in, can still make those fundamental errors. And luckily for me, that didn't break the bank. But, for other people, who are just starting out, that could be detrimental.
Well, with 25 years experience and you're only 33, you must have started really young. But,
you're very kind.
So let's go through a hypothetical. We're going to go with some guy named Alex Grossman, and he says, you know what, I've been an executive for the XYZ Corporation, a huge corporation, bigger than Apple Company, okay? And you know what, I want to go and do my business on the side, make a little extra bucks. Maybe I can make a little money, maybe even turn it into a business. That's going to be our hypothetical. We'll use that in this week and maybe in additional weeks down the road. So what is the first thing that he would need to do?
Well, I think the first thing is to identify the fact that you are not starting again. When you're doing a side hustle, you're bringing all the tools that you've learned in corporate. So you're bringing that into the new role. And don't forget that. A lot of people don't start their own business because they feel like they're going back to point zero, but it's not the case. So you've got these tools, these existing learnings and lessons that you've got in any business, especially if you're in corporate. They've got some great governance and structure and managing people. So you've got those skills. So make sure you identify those and take them with you. The second thing is to really think about redesigning your life. A lot of people in corporate are not happy. They spend a lot of time trying to, get pay rises and climb this ladder, but eventually, they still sit there and they feel like something's missing. And the reason that something's usually missing is because they're not doing something that drives their passion and feels like they're making a purpose. They kind of feel like a bit of a number or a clog in the wheel. So what we really want you to start with is start thinking about what is it that you're really passionate about? What do you stand for? And how can I make that into my business? Because when you're doing something that you love, you'll get up at the crack of dawn and talk about it because, you are very passionate about it and it doesn't feel like work. And the whole idea of this side hustle is the business serves you. You are not a slave to your business. So that's really important. So start with a list of what does this business, even if it hasn't started yet, this side hustle, how is it going to serve you and what are you passionate about so that you really want to do this and it works for you?
Well, and obviously the fact that you're up at sunrise at 6 a.m., you must have some passion for what you're doing as well as working with the Ask Brien Network on this show. I understand that. So first of all, everybody has multiple passions, right? So how do you find out which do you need to do what you're most passionate about, or should you look at 3 or 4 things that you are very passionate about and then take those 4 and see which one you might be able to monetize more easily? Would that be an approach, or would you just say the one that you're most passionate about, that should be it, forget about the others?
You know what's interesting is 50% of everything is timing. So if you do have an industry or a product in mind, it's really important to understand trends and be able to see what's happening in the marketplace, because 50% of why a business is successful is timing. And then the other is execution. And of course then, the strategy for how you take it to market. So what I find interesting is that a lot of people put the cart before the horse. course. So I say just be very broad. Pick something that you're very passionate about, but don't go out and spend the next 12 months developing product and building a website and doing all of this, because usually when you take it to market, if you aren't experienced, that won't be an MVP or a minimum viable product. So you've wasted all that time in development and in R&D and product development and all that sort of stuff. And I see this time and time again. I do a lot of mentoring. I'm involved in a lot of incubators. And, they just haven't got that right because they don't know what they don't know. So I always say to people, go out there and just start something and learn the tools of the trade first within your industry and that you want to pivot to, and then start thinking about what is it that you could sell to them. And that's really different for people because they can't get their head around it. They feel they need to go figure out what their logo looks like or their branding or their website, but that's actually not what's important. What's important is for you to start practicing the art of entrepreneurship in the sector that you're interested or in the area that you're interested in. And then once you understand trends, once you start seeing what customers are talking about online and, engaging in conversation with them, you will have your popcorn moment where you go, this is the right opportunity, this is the right product or the right service, and then you can act on it. And the other great thing is you have the skills to be able to, and the channel and hopefully the customers, to be able to instantly bring that product to market or bring that service to market. So it's a different way of thinking, but it requires no capital, which is great. It's not capital intensive. And, who has 12 months to sit around designing all the pretty bits? We really need our side hustle on now. We need to transform people from employment to entrepreneurship. And to be honest, I think that's what the world needs right now is more ethical entrepreneurs because, I believe business for good is a great force, and that's going to solve some of these issues.
So
can I ask you about... Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Al.
Can I ask you about two traps that I often see and how you handle these? So people who, and I talk to people all the time. I think what you're saying is 100% right. We need to transition people to entrepreneurship and get that side hustle going. But there's two traps that people fall into. The first one is they make it a hobby, and they don't make it, the entrepreneur spirit isn't there, and so it becomes a hobby. It doesn't, they don't put that same effort into it. They put a little effort into it, doesn't exactly go right away, and then it becomes their hobby. That's kind of the first trap that they see. And the second trap is jumping into things. I'll give you for instance, I've probably had 20 phone calls from people in the last few weeks that said, I have to know how to make masks. Masks are the biggest trend in the world. I need to get masks. Right? There's no passion there. The passion is they saw an opportunity. How do you separate passion from opportunity?
Well, masks being an opportunity. I know people who've done really well out of that to pivot their existing businesses, but just jumping on the latest bandwagon certainly isn't a viable business. It needs to tick a lot of boxes in order for it to be an asset. And when I say that a business is an asset, it should be the sort of business that you can exit at some point or raise capital or, it grows. So really, do all of us believe that we're going to need masks for the next 20 years and that market is going to grow? No. And exactly. And the other thing is barriers to entry. That's not developing IP and stuff that is valuable. So, that's just creating, selling product for the sake of selling product. So I wouldn't really call that a viable business. I would just call that someone trying to make money out of the current situation, like going to the market. So yeah, I see that as well, and I just shake my head. But they don't know what else to do, I guess. And if that's their idea of wanting to get into business, then we need to change the conversation and say, okay, you are thinking masks, but aren't you just doing that because everyone else is? It's a bit like Amazon. Everyone wants to jump on and sell stuff on Amazon. Right. But can we have a look at if you have that little fire in your belly and it's showing up for you as masks, let's start again and have the conversation about what being an entrepreneur really means and what are the things that the business should have in order for it to serve you, because I don't think you're going to be able to quit your day job over masks. whilst there's been a few people who are successful, they've actually just pivoted their existing business and operations. I have a friend who is in beauty and cosmetics. She turns over, 80 mil, and obviously there's some products that aren't working well for her, so it was a natural pivot for her to go to hand sanitizer. But is that her long-term game? Hell no. So, right. she's doing what she needs to right now to survive, and she's got the infrastructure in order to pivot. So don't be distracted. The other thing is be very clear. If you've got a side hustle and you're not putting the energy into it, and where your focus goes, your energy flows. If you're not doing that, you're just a wanderpreneur. It's not going to take off. But if it makes you a couple of $100 and keeps you out of trouble, awesome. But that's not my definition of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is somebody who learns the fundamentals of business, has a thirst for learning, and is able to create something that goes on to grow bigger and bigger and becomes an asset. So something that they can exit, pass down through their family, and that makes money for them and doesn't rely on them. What's your definition, Alex? Would you say that's similar?
I think you're right on the market there. I think that I often have looked at people who are hobbyists, and they're looking for a hobby. They're not really looking for a career change, something to move them into entrepreneurship. And I think you have to be dedicated. You have to wake up every minute of the day. You have to be, whether you're driving to your job, not that you shouldn't do a good job at your job, or everything you see around you, everything you do, you say, how can I funnel that into my business? How can I learn from what other people are doing every minute of the day? Everything you see, everything you do, the first thing that comes in your mind is, how does this apply to me doing better in my business? And I think that's so important in that dedication, that passion you have to have.
We've got to take a break. We have to take a break. The only thing I wanted to add was I always think of an entrepreneur as a risk taker, because there are risks involved. We're going to come back right after a break. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM.
The coronavirus has put us in a position of creating a new normal. Family Law at Home understands. Their goal is to meet you in the safest place possible. And these days, that might be in your own home in a virtual meeting. Family Law at Home will provide you with immediate advice on your family law matters, such as divorce cases, child custody disputes, and domestic violence. It's as easy as going to FamilyLawAtHome.com. You'll choose your own consultation date and be in immediate contact with one of their esteemed attorneys. Family Law at Home handles the legal aspect while you and your family navigate the new chapter in your lives. Go to FamilyLawAtHome.com.
Social distancing slows the spread of coronavirus, so if you have a fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going in. More info at coronavirus.gov. Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
The City of Santa Clarita is working closely with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health to monitor the coronavirus COVID-19. On March 13th, the City of Santa Clarita issued a local emergency declaration in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Due to the stay-at-home order, the Santa Clarita events like Thursdays at New Hall and the Cowboy Festival have been put on hold for the safety of the community. For information, go to santa-clarita.com. For important updates, visit the emergency blog at santaclaritaemergency.com.
Olive Terrace Bar and Grill is the hottest new Mediterranean fusion restaurant in Santa Clarita, with unique delicacies like seafood right off the boat, mouth-watering prime steaks, artesian sandwiches, delicious pastas, and tasty kebabs. Unwind on their cozy outdoor patio at their weekend champagne brunch, full menu, and weekly specials at oliveterracebarandgrill.com. Check out their full bar and happy hour daily specials in Valencia on Copper Hill and Newhall Ranch Road by LA Fitness. Olive Terrace Bar and Grill, delicious food seasoned with love.
Hometown, your hometown station.
Welcome. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And we're here live with Mr. Alex Grossman and Miss Tamara Loehr, and we were discussing side hustle because Ask Brien is trying to help people. If you're in a job or you don't have a job or you're trying to find your own little niche, this is the way to go. Start with something small and make it grow into an empire. We're right back. So, before the break, one of the questions that was come up was the definition of an entrepreneur. I think we have all the criteria, but I just wanted to make sure that Alex and Tamara, you think that all the criteria regarding the entrepreneur is there, or was there anything else that either one of you wanted to add?
Go, Alex.
I was going to say, I'll let you go, Tamara. Fine.
Everyone's definition is different of entrepreneurship. But,
The definition I've heard is, the definition of an entrepreneur is when you jump off a building, you'll build an airplane on the way down.
Exactly. Build the plane as you fly it. I prefer to take off from the ground. But
Yes, as do I.
So one of the things that we were asking about, and some people have asked as well, right now, most people grew up prior to the internet, not everyone, there's a certain percentage, and it was retail, brick and mortar. You wanted to buy something, you went to the store and you bought it. That's considered what I consider to be retail. Nowadays, you don't have to go to the retail store to buy it. You can go to Amazon, pretty much get anything you want. And so we're talking about how that's going to affect us. And on top of that, how has coronavirus, with the fact that some people cannot go to stores in certain places around the world, how that has affected. So, Tamara, let's start with you. For the coronavirus, do you think that has accelerated, decelerated the ability of people to go from retail to online in terms of purchasing items?
Look, the facts is that online's gone through the roof since all of this happened. People are purchasing online, and it takes about 7 times to change behaviours. So, whilst you've got a lot of people who do regularly shop online, those people have increased the amount of activity and amount of items that they buy online. They're willing to trial out different ways to buy different things that they normally would have gone to a store for. And then you've got other people who were your retail goers, who have had to switch, have been forced to change their behaviours because of the current conditions. So, that's really driven a different type of behaviours. And once behaviours have been done for up to 7 times, that then becomes a taught behaviour. So I don't think we're going to see it going away. And for my businesses, we've all increased because most of our revenue comes from online. All of our businesses have actually seen an increase in revenue during this time as a result of that, because of our timing, because we are well positioned online. So that's obviously the first thing. And then I think the second thing is I'm watching an unfold online with the conversations is this consciousness around what we are buying and where is it coming from. So I'm hoping that will lead to more ethical and mindful purchases leading into the future. And I'm helping drive that conversation, obviously.
And Alex?
I happen to agree 100%. I think that there's still a place for retail for certain items and for certain people, and I don't think retail is going to stay the way it is. I think there's been some very interesting tests in retail. I think Amazon has done some interesting things there with some of the stores that they've built. I think that there's a possibility that there's an instant gratification factor to this, that we're just getting into where we'll see more devices, say smartphones and other things, where it'll be a completely cashless transaction, more like your vending machine. So retail will feel more like a vending machine. But obviously for the entrepreneur today, I would not want to go through the hassle of having to even try to get a product into retail, where you can put a product online or through let's say e-commerce means at a much easier rate. And if you do it right, you can be much more successful and have a much larger footprint a lot faster. Not to mention, and Tamara and I were talking about this before, the margin possibilities of online, or what I'll call direct merchandising, can be a lot greater.
Absolutely.
So,
retail comes with a lot of overheads. You usually require capital. And you know that, Brian, I'm very passionate about female entrepreneurship, and we only had access to 2% of capital before COVID. So, retail's basically off the table for us if we're starting businesses from scratch. So we've really got to think of smarter ways to sell online, and it's definitely worth figuring that out because the margins are much better. Retail will take anywhere between 30 and 50%. They can buy a heap of product and be allowed to return it at any time. And then you've got your returns and your sampling, plus the compulsory marketing. I'm really hoping that through this process, retail gets a bit of a shake-up.
So let's switch gears a little bit back to where we were earlier. And so you've got this person who wants to start his own side hustle. He or she has to decide which passionate item or product or service they want to get involved in, okay? But then what? I mean, how much research do they need to do? Where can they find places? And, since it's a side hustle, I'd imagine they want to work with somebody in the partnering arrangement as opposed to just jumping in and saying, okay, this is going to be my product or service when you're doing it on a side hustle. So let's go through that a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's really important when we were talking before about the toolbox, the important thing is to understand selling online first, because if you understand the fundamentals, then you'll be able to see the trends and see what's happening within the industry that you're passionate about. So for me, go get those tools first. And the second thing is sell somebody else's product for a little while and understand how it works without having to have all that overhead and capital and resources for product. If you are interested in getting into product, use somebody else's, borrow someone else's car. It's a bit like Uber. You don't have to buy your own car nowadays. Just get someone else to drive for a little while and figure out what that destination looks like before you go investing money and capital into things like product development or hiring staff and all that sort of stuff. So my thing is really test drive online, get to know and learn all the lessons, but not through your own pocket.
Tamara, let me ask you a question on that a little bit because I want to take that a little further. Some people may have different opinions of this, but I agree 100%. I think if you look at Amazon, for instance, you might find 1,000 or 100,000 people selling the same product, right? And some people can do it well, and some people can do it bad. But I think it comes down to the question of, in the old days, and not so long ago, maybe 5 years ago, before we got into a business, we would build the business plan out, and partially that was because we were raising capital to do it, right? We would build the business plan, we'd set it all in stone, we'd put out forecasts, we'd look at our margins, we'd look at everything before we started. And sometimes that would take a day, a week, a month, a year. I mean, that 12 months you talked about. How do you feel about business plans, and what does a business plan look like, if there is such a one, for a side hustle other than maybe driving Uber or Uber Eats, which is unbelievably popular during our COVID times?
That'd be it. But again, that's just creating yourself self-employment. That's not entrepreneurship. So there's a huge difference. So, for me, I think a business plan is something that goes in the drawer and rarely gets pulled out. I'm more interested in, what are your values? What are you passionate about that you could talk about underwater, and then sell product or services through that? That's really what I'm interested in. You need to start with your why. Simon Sinek, if anyone is listening, amazing mentor in business. He talks about starting with why. So I say to people, start with why, then go and play in that industry first. And then once you understand it, you can get out those fundamentals of the business plan and go, okay, what do I need? And let's trial this idea against, the platform. Let's have a look. And that's what's great about online. We literally go to our huge following. We have over 200,000 people that follow us and buy products. And we go to them and we ask them, the problem people always do is they make the business personal and they make it an extension of themselves, an extension of their personal brand. Nobody cares. The end consumer cares about themselves. So start by asking people, if you're interested in, say, fitness, go and or gut health. We go and ask those people, what do you want to see? What are you looking for? What are you currently currently taking that you don't like, that you would like to see improved, and what improvements would you like to see to that? Do all your research online. And before, we used to have to spend a fortune on research and focus groups and all that sort of stuff to get these answers, whereas now it's readily available online. If you create a following and a community of trusted people where you're adding value, when you ask those sorts of questions, they really do go to huge lengths to provide you feedback. And people love being involved in your product or your services development. The whole shift now is the end consumer actually believe that they make or break a brand. So start with them and ask that question, and put your ego aside and what you want, because that's something you can just do for yourself. You don't have to go out there and spend your life savings trying to convince other people to buy that.
And how do you find sources? So, for instance, let's say my passion is, I don't know, I'll pick light fixtures. Okay, that's my passion. It isn't, but what it is. So how am I going to find suppliers? How am I going to find people that I can work with? How would I do that?
Yeah, well, so online is a great thing, and you'd be surprised how many interest groups there are on different things. And the perfect business is a very deep and narrow business. What I mean by that is they're not trying to be everything to everybody. They're very clear on who their client avatar is. They know their customer intrinsically, and they know where to find them online. So if you start with learning about digital marketing and you understand those sorts of basics of how to engage people online, then you could start a private group or an open group on Facebook about that topic, and then start inviting people, go into other groups and listen to their conversations and ask questions. There's a wealth of information and heaps of people that are willing to provide you their feedback. There's obviously some of it you take with a grain of salt, others you don't. The ones that you listen to, the ones that perfectly fit your client avatar. So it's actually quite easy to find. I quite often just start interest groups, put it out there for 6 weeks, and then it's a bit of validation before taking that next step and coming up with something for them. So, and I have them involved in the whole process. I think it's also a great marketing strategy. You can, if they feel like they built it, when you release it, you can do pre-sales, you can do all sorts of great things online.
Well, so with a Facebook group, if that's what you're referring to, I mean, it still takes a little bit of time and effort to build a group. I mean, you still need to have, 50 to 100 people before you can have a group to be. Is there a magic number of people that you need and a magic number of time that's going to take to get that type of group so you can start discussing those issues that can have, the research can be available through that group?
Well, I always say quality, not quantity. Turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. And online, I say, followers is vanity, engagement is sanity, and conversion is king. So, when we're talking about these groups, you just need to make sure that they're like-minded people. And it's really easy to start a group online. It costs nothing. But perhaps start in other groups first and start conversations there and test that out. I'm involved in a lot of incubators, and people come in with their ideas. Some of them have spent lots of money trying to get their business up and running. And, we start a group and start a conversation, and within a very short time they realize that it's actually not something that people are after. There's no market for it. That's very disappointing. But then at the same time I say, okay, well, let's have a look at what they do want and how we might be able to, shift this in the right direction. So start with conversations and put your ego aside. That's always the way that I go.
Tamara, I think you hit on a really interesting point there, and this is one that I often tell people, and I find it's true. I will talk to people all the time who have a passion about something they absolutely believe they need to bring to market or need to find or need to build. A lot of times they're just looking all over and scouring for it because they have this perfect idea, and it's in their head, and they're about it, and they're never changing, never doing it. But you take them and you have them join a group or a number of groups online. They start putting the ideas out, and if they're a little open, people will tell them how to revise those ideas and how they'll actually work. And I will tell you, the best entrepreneurs are the ones that see it and they pivot. I mean, we use this term, or we have used this term in the VC world for a long time, pivoting the idea, right? The idea of pivoting. People are smart, will pivot, and that passion will relate to the new thing. Otherwise, if they can't move, they shouldn't be doing it. They should just stop right there and say, this isn't for me. I'm doing this for all the wrong reasons. But I think that's a very, very valid observation there.
Well, I mean, and it's just a hobby then. If you're not willing to listen to feedback and pivot, then you're not really made for entrepreneurship. And I think that's a fundamental thing. Everybody sees entrepreneurs and they see all the wins on Facebook, when they're posting what they're doing as a business person, but they don't see that behind that they've had to make some pretty fundamental decisions, to get to where they are and work very hard. So, entrepreneurship isn't for everyone, but it is extremely rewarding. And when you find your tribe, that's the other thing is, don't do it alone. Find like-minded people and have an abundance mentality. Everybody thinks that, I call it founder syndrome. They've got this great ideas, so, they don't have to do anything else because they came up with the idea. Well, guess what? McDonald's do not have the best burgers. So, it's really about execution and your timing that are important, not necessarily the idea. So, put your ego to the side, go out there and start conversations, and be willing to be open and be willing to be flexible and pivot, because business is like that. It's going to throw you all sorts of hot bananas all the time, aren't they?
We got to take a break, guys. One of the things I did want to point out that is the big thing is with online versus retail. I find with online you can get answers to questions and find information out a lot quicker than you can on retail. So I think that's a big valid point I wanted to discuss. We're going to take a break. We'll listen to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM.
If you have a business problem, if someone doesn't honor their agreement and you need an aggressive attorney with over 27 years experience, the law office of Peter Bronstein has helped partners resolve disputes, franchisees resolve disputes, and other business owners who have a challenge. Let the law office of Peter Bronstein take your stress away. Visit lacorporateattorney.com. Don't wait too long and lose your rights. Solve your business challenge problem today. Visit lacorporateattorney.com.
A social distancing tip.
While the CDC urges you to avoid close contact, like hugging or shaking hands, there are other non-physical ways to say hello. Wave, wink, use sign language, salute, smile, give the peace sign, throw up an air high five, do jazz hands. Remember, stay a minimum of 6 feet or 2 arms length away from others, and stay home if you can. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
We all know sometimes people lose their way. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, the Way Out Recovery SCV may have the answers you've been waiting for. The Way Out is the premier intensive outpatient treatment center serving Santa Clarita. Asking for help is the first step. Call The Way Out today, 661-296-4444. That's 296-4444 for a private free assessment. The Way Out is an accredited, affordable outpatient program that accepts most insurance. Call us at 661-296-4444 or check us out online at thewayoutrecoveryscv.com. Quit battling with yourself. Ask The Way Out for help today.
It's like no other station I've ever listened to. It's great.
Your hometown station.
Welcome. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM with our co-host today of Alex Grossman, co-host guest Tamara Loehr. And so we were talking about retail to online and some of the things along those lines, who is an entrepreneur, and et cetera. So question for you, Tamara, is what criteria do you think you need to be a successful entrepreneur? What skills do you think you need?
I think you need to be quite flexible. I think you need to be very passionate about what you do, especially in online. It's very transparent, so you will come unstuck if you don't believe in what you're doing. And I think you also need to be a team player. It's all about being open to feedback and knowing that this isn't the Tamara Show or the Brien Show, even though this is the Brien Show. But this is a collective effort, and having mentors and coaches and being open to that feedback is really important. So, Alex, what would you say you admire most about entrepreneurs?
Well, Tamara, really, I think that it is the passion that you have to really understand, that the passion takes you so far, but you really, good entrepreneurs understand that it is a team, it is a family, it is caring, it is giving back. That's really what entrepreneurship is all about. It's learning and then understanding you can help others. If you can't help others, you're not an entrepreneur. You're never going to make it, because you learn every day from the mistakes that others make and helping them overcome those mistakes. I find more than 50% of the people that I meet that are great entrepreneurs have failed. And people always laugh. They go, anybody who's failed, forget it. I'm not gonna deal with them. They don't know what they're doing. But they took the effort. They put it in to understand that they were going to either win or lose. And when they lost, they said, "Why did I lose? What do I do better next time?" And they got back on that horse and rode away. And that's really what I respect about a great entrepreneur: the ability to just get up, take that passion, learn from others, and understand, yes, and admit I made a mistake and go on and do it again. I don't get that from Mr. Brien Johnson, though. He's never wrong.
But cute. But isn't that the risk-taking factor that I talked about, that people are willing to take that risk, and people understand that failures can build a successful company, and so you have to just take that risk. And sometimes, everyone could say no, 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 and the entrepreneur just sometimes has to say yes. Now, they could be wrong. Usually they are, but they're willing to still take that risk, even though everyone says no. Obviously, we're talking about calculated risk versus just crazy risk, right? So, I definitely think risk is definitely part of the factor. The other thing is, what is a success? Is it just monetarily based, or are there other ways that you could say you are a success? I open up that question to both of you.
Look, I don't think entrepreneurs are driven by money. True entrepreneurs are driven by passion and purpose, and I can say that as a fact because that I'm a member of Young Presidents Organisation, and I think the average turnover is 100 mil, and they're certainly not talking about their cars or their planes. They're talking about their team, about making a difference in the world. Business is a game, and sometimes you win the game and sometimes you don't, but I don't see them as mistakes. I see them as lessons, and your ability to be able to look at it that way and not make it personal, and to show up every day and do your best, show up with abundance, show up with compassion. I think that's really what makes a great entrepreneur, because we need more of them too, because even though it's risky, there are ways to reduce that risk, and that's really what I've been focusing on, is how do we get people kick-started, how do we get them into entrepreneurship and get that 4 out of 5 failure rate down by simply looking at it not like we're all going into battle against each other and the last 4 men will be standing out of 100. How do we figure out how to do this collectively, so that we have more people pivoting to entrepreneurship, so that we can step up and be great problem solvers, not only for our business but for the world?
Well, we've got about, 30 seconds left, so Alex, did you want to add something?
I think that's a great way to look at it, although I will say, Tamara, I do consider those mistakes because I seem to make them over and over again. Only a little bit tongue-in-cheek there. But we definitely need to keep this series going, and we need to follow up more. There's so much more to talk about on this subject. I can't wait to dig even deeper.
And one of the things I want to talk about in the future, closing up, is how do you manage a team when you're remotely, especially in coronavirus? That's going to be a future episode. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Thank you very much. We'll be back next week.